BravOG's here where we mention it all. So pay attention, please, and be cool. Don't be all like uncool. So hello, everybody. I am back. Hannah is not able to join me until next week. So I thought I would do what I did last time I did solo, which is just kind of do a recap. We haven't posted anything in over 2 weeks, so I will be discussing the last 2 weeks of shows. I think I'm just going to do Vanderpump Rules and Summer House. I will wait to discuss the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunions 1, 2, and 3 with Hannah once she's back next week. And I have quite a lot to say. So this is great. This is kind of like my therapy session for things that have nothing to do with me, which is fun for me because I get it all out there and I just feel better afterwards because I have all these things in my head and I just have to talk. And who better to listen than people that love Bravo as much as me? Okay, so let's get right into it. So, Vanderpump Rules. Last week, the group, minus Ariana and Katie, went to Tahoe to see the progress of Lisa's new restaurant, Wolf. And then this week was the group coming back from the trip and just their meetups with one another and just talking about what's currently going on with them and how the Tahoe trip was. So I want to talk about last week first. So, the Tahoe trip. Basically, everyone was still weary about being around Sandoval, but they all shared a house together and exchanged awkward interactions, to say the least. So this is kind of the breakdown in like 4 parts, and then I'm going to talk about each one of those 4 parts in more detail. So Sheena basically cried the whole time due to everyone not making every situation about her, and basically her struggle to wanting to befriend Sandoval, but not wanting to be on Ariana's bad side or lose any part of her friendship with Ariana. Then Sandoval hosted a meditation gathering for the group while they were there. And then at the end of their trip, they went on a boat where they all just kind of hung out for the day, and Lala ended up giving Sandoval a piece of her mind, but then they quickly made up and moved on. And then finally, the episode ended with Sheena continuing to complain, and she did receive a bunch of online backlash for standing next to Sandoval in a picture a fan took, subsequently engaging Lala to say Ariana should have come to Sheena's defense and saying that Ariana has her head up her ass, which is ridiculous, but I'll get to that. So anyway, Sheena, in regards to her basically crying the whole time due to everyone not making every situation about her, these are my thoughts about the whole thing. So Sheena talked about how Sandoval was such an amazing friend to her, especially during the pandemic, and she revealed that Sandoval ended up giving her a couple $1,000s because Sheena had lost her podcast. She was, I believe, pregnant at the time. She was basically worried about her financial status, during the COVID time. And I guess Sandoval had, PayPal'd her a couple $1,000s to get through it. So Sheena's basically using this as the main reason why Sandoval has been such an amazing friend to her, and pretty much her only point of, why this backs up her theory. I'll say theory instead of delusion because I'll be saying delusion a lot during this episode. As for Sandoval giving Sheena that money, so I don't know if Sheena was aware, but Ariana and Tom were very much together during that time. And if, let's say my partner, we don't even have to be married, but my partner at the time decides to give one of our other friends several $1,000s, I would hope it would be run past me because, although that is kind of his money, like a lot of, money when you're in that kind of a relationship is kind of your money together. So, and Ariana actually did on Watch What Happens Live, did confirm that she was aware that Tom did this and she was in full support of it. So technically, I think that can kind of be considered Ariana's money too. So it's just suspicious, especially later on in this current week's episode, you see Sandoval gift James a pair of sunglasses. And it seems that Sandoval does a lot of favors and, kind of masks it as being a good friend, but it always seems to have like an ulterior motive. So I just think that no good deed Sandoval does goes without him garnering like recognition for it or trying to get something out of it by doing it. Is this what he did with Sheena? Who knows? Yes, that is a very generous thing to do. However, you can do good deeds every once in a while and still not be a good friend or a good person, which I think this is the case. But Sheena is desperately hanging on to this as a reason why she just can't fathom losing him completely as a friend. That just kind of segues into my feeling that you can be friends with someone over the years, but people change. I've had friends that were very good to me in the past, but then once things kind of went awry, they either, show their true colors but I mean, people change. Sandoval may have been a good friend to Sheena back in the day when nobody wanted to be friends with Sheena. And, Sheena always likes to say that, oh, Tom pulled me into pictures when VPR was just starting because none of the girls on the cast liked me. I wonder why. But she's just holding so desperately on to the version of Tom that she saw him, like in a light that she saw Tom like years ago. Like, he is not the same person he was 9-10 years ago when your show first started. I think, his narcissism has probably always been there, but as the years go on, it's been said by a lot of the other castmates, he does a lot. Like, the show is basically, he does everything for the show. Like, it was even said that, anytime he wanted to have a conversation with Schwartz, he would text production first and be like, hey, I want to talk to Schwartz. Like, can you guys set it up so you can get it on camera? Like, everything is for the cameras. Like, it just seems like nothing is that genuine. There's always like an ulterior motive. But I just don't understand why Sheena is fighting so hard to keep this friendship. I mean, over the past year alone, he has shown in several different ways that he doesn't care about what he says or does, how it affects other people, especially his friends. If he did, he would have way more remorse for this whole situation having an effect on every single person in his life. But as we've seen, he doesn't see it that way. And I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I genuinely think that he just lives in his own reality, which is not a reality I would ever want to live in, but that's just me. And I'm going to kind of get back to the whole Sheena friendship thing and Tom in just a little bit. But later on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why there is evidence, even the same day that Sheena was saying she misses his friendship, that he has shown in that very same episode several reasons why he doesn't give a fuck about you, Sheena. He really doesn't. He is literally only using you because you are the easiest person that he can penetrate to get back in the good graces of the group. I mean, if it wasn't for the whole show and Lisa's peer pressure, I don't think James would have let him back in. I don't think Lala would have cared. Schwartz is a lost cause. He will always have Sandoval's back no matter what, but Sheena is the gateway back into the group. And Sandoval knows this, and he's using, Sheena's flip-flop loyalty to use that as a manipulation tactic to get back with the group. That's what I think. So anyway, moving on. Sandoval hosted a meditation gathering for the group while they were there. This was just painful to watch in so many ways. So the meditation lady kind of met with Sandoval beforehand because he's the one that set it up. And she was just kind of asking him like, okay, what are some things you want to focus on during this time or this session? And mistake me if I'm wrong, but watching this, I took it as like an easy answer he was supposed to give, like, oh, I want to focus on clarity. I want to focus on letting things go, like something like that. But Sandoval started on his whole like woe is me story. So he's like, okay, so I had this affair, blah, 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 blah. Like, the meditation lady's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm sure she knows about everything anyway, but she doesn't want to sit there for 20 minutes and listen to you annoyingly tell your story about your life and why nobody likes you and everyone hates you and why you're doing this, so you can basically just emotionally guilt people into giving you another chance. I almost felt like Sandoval was trying to convince the meditation lady to try and like hypnotize the group almost into being his friend again. I mean, that's the impression I got. I mean, yeah. So I also, and this is happening in the recent episodes, I literally cannot stand when Tom is trying to act sorry for his sins and he talks like his lips are numb and trying to act like melancholy. Like, he goes into this like, so I had an affair and I was in love with Rachel and she wants nothing to do with me. Like, stop. I can't when you talk like that. It makes you look even more pathetic than you already are, which is almost impossible, but in some way, the way he talks like that just gets under my skin. Also, just a little symbolic thing that I kind of noticed that during the meditation, the lady was kind of just, in her calm voice, she's just like, I want you guys to start off focusing on yourself. Like everyone close their eyes, to kind of like, that's what you do to just kind of focus and look inward. And I just thought it was so like symbolic that they pan around to everyone in the group and everyone has their eyes closed. They're just kind of like in their feelings and like looking inward. And they showed Sandoval and he was laying down with his eyes like wide open, almost like reflecting in like a symbolic way that he's like unable to even reflect on himself and look inward. I don't know. That was just a little thing that I caught that I thought was like really odd. I was like, I don't know. It was kind of weird to me. Like I wouldn't keep my eyes open during like a meditation, but I mean, to each their own. Maybe it was nothing, but I thought it was a little symbolic of the whole thing. So anyway, Sheena was paired up with Sandoval, and after making a scene, leaving the whole group to go upstairs and cry and complain that she couldn't even look this person in the eye, like she's struggling so much and no one understands how hard this is for her. And Brock just kind of encouraged her, like, look, just suck it up, like this is the first step, like you're conflicted, at least like just go one way or the other, like either tell him how you really feel or listen to what he says, like just pretty much be open and whatever. So Sheena ends up coming back. They have to look at each other. You're partnered up during this exercise. And of course, Sandoval and Sheena are partnered. And they had to look in each other's eyes. And the meditation lady said, as you're looking at this person, like imagine them no longer being in your life and what you would do if this is the last time you ever saw this person. Like, what would you say? Blah, blah, blah. And my thoughts, if I was Sheena and I was looking at Sandoval and I was Ariana's quote unquote best friend, I would think, great, this is exactly the scenario that should have happened after the scandal broke and you told Tom you wanted no part of a friendship with him and didn't want to know him because you couldn't support him or anything he had done and you couldn't back it up and he's just a terrible person. Like that's what I would have said. I mean, that should have been the last thing you said to him before you never saw him again. During this time, Sheena was very conflicted. She goes, I'm so mad at you. I'm so mad at you. But, I just, don't know what to do. And Sandoval started crying. And wouldn't you know it, Sheena thinks Sandoval's tears were actually genuine. And you know why Sheena thought that? Because he was crying about Sheena. All the other times he's cried, I would guarantee you Sheena wouldn't be like, oh, those are genuine tears, no way. But now that Sheena's sitting in front of him and he has to imagine not having Sheena in his life anymore, now Sheena thinks his tears are genuine. Give me a break. The only reason why she felt that he is being genuine because Sheena is so self-centered, said, oh, his tears were genuine because he was thinking about me not being in his life anymore. Sweetheart, he didn't give a fuck throughout the past year alone what happened to you or your family. So anyway, fast forward, the last day of their Tahoe trip, they just kind of go on a boat ride during the day, and Lala ends up starting a conversation with Sandoval. So finally, we see the Lala that we've wanted to see since the start of the show, the Lala that we were all rooting for on the reunion when she called Sandoval and Raquel out for all their shittiness. The Lala lashing, as we all know and love, when it's directed at the appropriate people, of course. So she started a conversation with Sandoval basically saying, look, I think you owe me an apology for giving me so much shit last year, looking me in the eyes constantly and telling me that I needed to be real and I needed to take accountability. All the while, Lala was like, what you were doing behind everyone's backs. Like, it was just so fucked up. And honestly, I think that you owe me an apology. When Lala was, setting her boundaries with the no contact policy with Randall and all while Sandoval was basically being the biggest hypocrite in the world. So, of course, true to Sandoval, he immediately becomes defensive and brings up the past. He tries to hold over Lala's head the fact that she hid Randall and her relationship from the show for 6 years, and she never wanted to talk about it, and she basically did the same thing. And the audacity that Sandoval said in his confessional, they cut to a confessional piece that he suggested basically tit for tat, calling his and Lala's situation a wash. Are you kidding me? Yes, Lala has put stipulations on friendship. She's given ultimatums. She went through a terrible, terrible breakup with her fiance. There was a kid involved. She went through some stuff, and her ex-fiance was a public figure, and a lot of it was, it was messy. It was bad. But the fact that Sandoval he constantly tries to put Lala on the same level as him, and Lala may not be everybody's cup of tea, and sometimes she's wrong with who and how she lashes out, but she does have remorse and she does take accountability, which is never equal a wash with Sandoval. Like, you cannot compare the two situations. Sandoval, like, he's just got something about Lala. Like, I'm really not sure what it is, but the fact that he thinks that his mess up equals Lala not wanting to share her relationship with Randall is just yet another piece of this delusional puzzle. So anyway, bottom line, he again takes no accountability, he deflects, and he's using the past, which Lala even calls him out, is his only remaining qualm or piece that he has in his arsenal against Lala, hence is the only reason or the only topic that he can keep bringing up and throwing in her face. She's like, this was 6 years ago, like, you have to let it go. I did my time, I made my peace, but you haven't grown as a person. You haven't taken any accountability, like absolutely nothing. And he can't even say, yes, that was messed up that I was berating around, accusing everyone else of not being real when I, in fact, was hiding a whopper of a secret. Like, he could not just say, I'm sorry, that was messed up. Like, I shouldn't have come so hard on you when I was being the shadiest piece of shit ever. No, that would be way too easy. Way too easy. So he decides to make things more difficult on himself. So Lala popped off on him, rightfully so, and she basically said, like, you are terrifying, you cannot take any accountability, and the fact that you don't see it and have nothing in you to even try to see how this has affected everyone. And even, I mean, I don't even think Lala was asking for much for him. She just wanted him to just say, yeah, that was messed up how I went so hard on you. That was it. And he couldn't even do that. But lo and behold, Sheena came to the rescue, and she basically spelled it out for Sandoval. I'm sure the way she would explain it to Summer Moon, which is her 2-year-old, I believe. And his only excuse to get out of the heat was to say he didn't understand what Lala was saying or what she meant. Like, how hard is it for someone to understand? Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, thinking that that this conversation would be something extremely simple to understand. I'm sorry, but if Sandoval's going to get out of any accountability by saying, oh, I didn't understand what you meant, like, English, motherfucker, do you speak it? Do you understand it? Do you understand sentences? Because clearly you didn't understand this super simple concept. I mean, he just weaseled his way out of accountability again. I mean, and then once Lala calmed down and Sandoval expressed to Lala, oh, he didn't initially understand what she was exactly saying, amazingly, they just hug it out and seem to be in a better place. I'm literally rolling my eyes over here. So also during this boat trip, Sheena calls Ariana. And Katie's there too, because they're both interviewing people for their new sandwich shop. And Sheena basically gives Ariana a sob story about how the trip has been so extremely hard for her because she wants to consider rebuilding a friendship with Sandoval, but she's caught in between a rock and a hard place. She basically said she can't keep hating him for you, Ariana. So, girl, Ariana is not the one. You want sympathy for your struggles, Sheena? Talk to Lisa Vanderpump. Talk to Lala. You want sympathy, Sheena? Don't cry to Ariana about how you so badly want to be cool with Tom again. You're just setting Ariana up for failure by needing sympathy from her about this. Talk to literally any other person on the planet about how this is such a struggle for you. Sheena complaining at the end of the episode about how when she complains to Ariana about her broken friendship with Tom, Ariana only tells Sheena she shouldn't feel that way because Sandoval is not a good person or a friend. And honestly, that's Ariana being a good friend to you, telling you you probably shouldn't be friends with someone that could be so dismissive and damaging to her, as in Sheena, and their friendship. Ariana basically said, I'm sorry that you're hurting, but I have no fucks to give when it comes to that man. Sheena then complained that she got no support from Ariana about this topic. Why the fuck would you? Quote of the whole episode, I think, was Ariana saying in her confessional, it's honestly really sad if anyone looks at their life right now and thinks the missing piece is Tom Sandoval. And she couldn't have said it any better. But of course, this is all about Sheena, and maybe Ariana just doesn't understand how much this has all affected Sheena. So while they were in Tahoe, obviously this is a couple months after the scandal, things were still fresh, and this is the first time the whole group's around Sandoval. So there's a lot of touchy things, but apparently a fan, while they were in Tahoe, asked to take a group picture with everyone there. And it just so happens Sandoval and Sheena were standing next to each other when this picture was taken. So this was obviously at the height of the whole scandal. So people were ripping Sheena apart online, saying, only been a few months, you're such a flip-flopper, you're out with Sandoval, you're taking cozy pictures. Ariana didn't immediately tell her stans, as Lala liked to call them, to basically back off Sheena, because Sheena's been such an amazing friend to Ariana during this whole thing, and it's basically the least that Ariana can do, and Lala said that Ariana's head has been up her own ass. So the end of the episode, Sheena just complains so much about how nothing ever gets to be about her and her pain. Sheena, no one else has to feel that way about you because you shove it down all of our throats constantly. You make everything about you. The jealousy is seething out of your pores. Maybe sometimes people would make things about you if you weren't so thirsty and desperate for it. There's a reason that you've been on the show since season 1 and you've never been the main character. So the very end of the episode was basically Tom realizing he was indeed chipping away at the disdain everyone has for him. And he said actually the most intelligible thing that Sandoval has probably ever said in quite some time, which was something along the lines of, I feel like I've been a stray dog and they've started leaving some food for me on the porch. He goes, I'm not allowed to come in the house yet, but they're letting me sleep in the backyard as opposed to on the street. And honestly, Sandoval, and this is probably the one and only time I will ever say this, but he was right. He is chipping away, and they are kind of throwing him a bone here. I mean, he had a talk with James, and that went pretty well. Obviously, him and Schwartz will always be cool, but the fact that him and Lala hugged it out, he cried with Sheena, he thinks he's making some real progress here. So I just want to go on a little rant for 1 second about the whole idea that this season is production's attempt for a redemption arc for Tom Sandoval. I just don't understand this pathetic attempt at this redemption arc for Sandoval this season. And not only that, but I feel like they're also trying to portray Ariana as the villain. And this is exactly what's wrong with production, Lisa Vanderpump, Bravo in general. I mean, we have a man that destroyed the inner workings of not only his own life, his partner's life, his mistress's life, the friend group dynamics now and going forward. And we want to let this rat out of his cage and somehow make him the face of someone who is deserving of a redemption. I mean, we all love a redemption story, but it needs to be for someone that deserves it. We have a woman, Ariana, who has not lashed out in the press, has handled herself with, I think, such grace and sincerity. She hasn't put any stipulations on her friends. She hasn't given ultimatums. She's offered her friends to profit off of her pain and suffering, and is now beginning to heal and setting healthy boundaries, which is probably more than, I'd say, 75% of our society can even do. She's not making rash decisions. We're trying to make this person out to be the villain. And that is exactly what's wrong with our world, to think that we could so easily turn on someone who has shown strength and grace and is not, spiteful or vengeful or on a smear campaign. She's just trying to be strong and figure things out for herself going forward. And we're trying to villainize that. I just don't understand. That's not to say that people shouldn't get second, maybe even third or fourth chances. But the beautiful part about making mistakes and failing is that you grow and learn and evolve into making yourself a better person, and in turn, making the people around you better people. Sandoval has not grown. He has not learned, and he hasn't even recognized how what he did affected so many people in so many different ways. He's been ranting about Rachel and how, he's the victim in that situation because she won't talk to him anymore. What about your friends that you fucked over and put them in unfair positions and broken friendships? What about your family, who I'm sure is ashamed and embarrassed of you? I think it was even said that his brother even told him not to associate with him on social media because his brother didn't want any backlash or have it be known that he's even related to this fool. I mean, he's put his business partners and hasn't even expressed how what he did affected their businesses, Schwartz and Sandy's, Tom. Like he doesn't take any accountability that he affected them too. But most importantly, Ariana, she would have stayed with that man for the rest of her life, and she was even considering procreating with him after years of saying she did not want kids. Before they broke up, she was doing fertility appointments and considering freezing her eggs so that could be an option. I'm guessing more so for him. Like, this is crazy that she was compromising her own feelings to make him happy. And there's absolutely no genuine remorse and just such a lack of self-awareness. And this is the person that Bravo and production is trying to load up on the bandwagon to have a redemption. I say, fuck that. I hope no one has been fooled by this and no one is jumping on the wagon to just let Tom skate through life with no accountability for doing the things that he did. I know life isn't fair, but this really isn't fair. And I don't think that anybody should make Ariana the villain in this scenario whatsoever. And you see Lala kind of turned on her. You see Sheena making jabs at her. I just think it's pathetic that there's even an inkling or a conversation that this season should have been about making Ariana the villain. It's just ludicrous to me. Okay, sorry. That was the first of a few rants I have, but on to this week's episode. So it starts off with Sheena meeting with Lisa to discuss, big surprise, herself. So Sheena talks to Lisa Vanderpump about learning that Ariana was chosen to be on Dancing with the Stars and basically how butthurt she was that it was her dream to be on that show. So I have several things to say about this. Sheena mentioned that she started taking dance lessons just this past year because she thought maybe somehow she might be asked to do this show. So you somehow think, Sheena, you would be considered, but let me tell you, the reason you started practicing this past year is because of all the shit that happened to Ariana. Otherwise, there would not even be a seedling planted in your little brain that makes you think that you might be considered. If you were chosen, the only reason you would have been selected is because of what Ariana just went through. So you should really thank Ariana for your added delusion thinking that they would choose you over her. Also, on Sheena's podcast recently, she did majorly contradict herself, saying that she thought she had a lifetime ban from Dancing with the Stars because I believe when she went to go visit the show when Lisa Vanderpump was on Dancing with the Stars many years ago, that they had, kicked her out because I think she had like a vape pen on her or something like that. And Sheena even confessed on her podcast that she thought she had a lifetime ban on Dancing with the Stars set. So it makes no sense now that you want to like villainize Ariana that she got this. And even though you say you're happy for her, you're just jealous for yourself. But Sheena did say that when she went to go visit Ariana on the set when she was doing it, she was nervous she wouldn't even be allowed in. So which is it, Sheena? Because we did not hear you crying when you thought the ban was a lifetime ban instead of just a 1-year ban. Like, we didn't hear about any of this drama then. Like, why is it so convenient now that you have to bring it up? Like, it's just, something as life-shattering as your, lifetime dream to be on that show. You didn't care then. I guess you care now. And then, hypothetically, even if this whole Scandival thing happened to Sheena instead of Ariana, I personally don't believe Sheena still would have gotten as many brand deals, and I don't think she still would have been asked to do Dancing with the Stars still. She wouldn't have been on Broadway. I mean, Ariana is just way more likable than Sheena. Ariana is not self-centered, and she doesn't make everything about her, and that's why I think she resonates with a lot more people than Sheena does. Like, Sheena acts like she should have been given all these opportunities, but even if this whole thing did actually happen to Sheena, I still don't think that she would have gotten nearly as many brand deals or opportunities because she's not likable. She's, she has her fans, but in the general consensus, I don't think she is a likable person. So I really don't think that she would be getting nearly as much as she had. But she totally doubled down and being a shady bitch. She says that Ariana's come a long way from being my backup dancer 10 years ago. I'm sorry, backup dancer for your worthless music career? And I say that with air quotes, if we can even call it that. Furthermore, Ariana put your stupid single back on the map by reigniting it for the Uber One Eats commercial after the scandal, by even being in the commercial with you and Lala. You weren't crying tears then saying it wasn't about you and how much you miss your stupid friendship with Tom. Was it because you were getting opportunities and you got a little bit of side clout? So, and this just bothers me even more, like, and shows that Ariana still, after hearing all these comments from Sheena as the show plays out, she still like handles things with such grace. So Ariana was on Watch What Happens Live this past week, and she was asked about the whole Dancing with the Stars comment, and Ariana said, the way I look at it, if someone from our show gets selected, doesn't that open it up for more people on our show to be selected? Yet again, Ariana taking the high road and opening up opportunities for Sheena she normally would never be considered for. Sheena's podcast during the whole Scandival time was getting major ratings, which she even admitted in 2020 she lost her podcast deal because, surprise, surprise, no one probably cared. Ariana's turmoil put your podcast back on the map because Sheena's messy and she was divulging tidbits and an insider look into the friend group at that time. And during this time, so many of us were fiends for the smallest bit of new or emerging information surrounding the scandal. Like, we just would take up any breadcrumbs. So anything that Sheena was talking about on her podcast at the time, and that is why she got viewers. And this is clearly evident by her podcast being canceled during COVID times because no one cared then. Ariana put you back on the map. So instead of being jealous, how about you be grateful and just say thank you? And it's just so annoying. I know friendship breakups can be hard. Almost everyone has had them. And yes, they are painful and hurtful and can be damaging. But this person is still showing you and your husband, Brock, that he is reckless and you are disposable to him. And this is clearly evident by, on last week's episode, Sandoval told Brock the same day Sheena was crying about missing him that Sheena did, in fact, allegedly punch Raquel. And also, Brock had brought up to Sandoval that, where did all these rumors, did you have any part in the rumors coming out that I was, as in Brock, also having an affair with Raquel? And Sandoval, I didn't know anything about that. And Brock said, well, that's funny because we contacted the person that leaked that information and they came from Tom Sandoval's camp. And he, of course, denied it. But that was two major things that conflict the reason why Sheena would even consider being friends with this person again. Sheena acted like the restraining order was the most devastating thing, and it put her, parental situation at risk and all that. But yet you still want to forge a rekindling of this friendship? He doesn't give a fuck. Sheena, come on. I want to shake you. Make it make sense. But anyway, Sheena says that she tries so hard to be a ride or die for Ariana, but she goes, is everything I've done still, not enough still? Sheena, you're missing the point. There's no time limit if you are in actuality a ride or die for somebody. Unless the person you're riding for has wronged you in such a major way, ride or die means you will ride for this person until you die. There's no amount of time and no time cap put on that. She should be a ride or die for Ariana. Ariana has been, her friend longer than Tom. I mean, she was your backup dancer all those years ago. So moving along. So the next scene is Lala grabbing coffee with Ariana to basically guilt Ariana into not standing up for Sheena, among other things. But in particular, when Sheena got a ton of internet backlash for the fan picture where she was standing next to Sandoval. Remind you, this was only 3 months when we were probably the most invested in anything outside of our lives. Ariana said that she doesn't want anything she says because it comes in immediate headline, and she basically didn't want to add any fuel to the fire. So Lala kind of stepped up to her and said, you're not even going to do that for your best friend? To which Ariana replied, I mean, I guess I could, which she ended up doing, even though she didn't want to. Yet again, Ariana compromising herself to lessen the bad attention on Sheena, but Sheena will welcome any kind of good attention from Ariana. But so then Lala started going in on Ariana, telling her basically she can't be treating Sheena the way she is, and as in Ariana having completely appropriate boundaries with her ex in regards to her friendship with Sheena. I mean, Lala, there is no place in this fight for you. I'm sorry. You have no room to be telling anybody about boundaries, as you gave people specific ultimatums last year when you were going through this stuff with your ex. Ariana's not telling anybody anything. Like, Sheena's a big girl. Sheena should be able to easily comprehend if you're friends with Sandoval, Ariana will not be as close of a friend with you. Sheena's aware of the consequences. She just doesn't want to abide by them, so she has to make it a sob story about her and about how Ariana doesn't really care about her friendship and she's not supporting her. Shut the fuck up, Sheena. So the next scene is Lala, Sheena, Katie, and Christina meeting up for a girls' dinner. Sheena started talking about the Tahoe trip and how she's really struggling with the whole Tom and Ariana of it all. Katie, rightfully, got annoyed that this was even a topic or a consideration of Sheena to risk Ariana's friendship for Tom. Tension between Lala and Katie came about because all of a sudden, Lala has her head so far up Sheena's ass for some reason, probably because it's the only place that Lala can no longer hear Sheena's complaints about herself. But good for Katie. I mean, during this conversation, she was 100% right in what she was saying. She said Sandoval was horrible to her for many years, and Katie believes that he played a major part and contributed, obviously not the entire reason, but contributed to the demise of her marriage with Tom Schwartz. And Katie pointed out that she has never once gotten an apology from Sandoval for any of it, for years of berating her, years of making her look like a bad person. And the difference is Katie doesn't need an apology from Sandoval, or the trash bag, as she refers to him during this dinner, to be able to move on or forgive. She sees Tom for who he is and basically says his apology would mean nothing regardless. But rightfully so. Katie deserves way more than what she got, and Sheena should take some lessons here. The girls then went to Allie's house for a birth chart reading, and it's Ariana, Katie, Lala, Sheena, and obviously Allie. Things get really heated when Lala again goes in on Ariana and faults Ariana for having basically reasonable boundaries with her friends and the whole Sandoval of it all. And Katie stepped up to Lala, seeing right through Lala's bullshit. Katie says Lala is comparing Ariana's situation to Lala and Randall's situation, and she thinks that Lala is trying to make it seem that Lala's situation was worse. And Lala got a little bit bitchy and defensive, and Lala ended up using the excuse that Ariana needs to let all this hate and resentment go with Sandoval the way that she's learned to do with Randall. I'm sorry, but Lala, for the love of God, stop comparing your situation with Randall to Ariana's situation with Tom. First of all, Ariana can have as much resentment for Sandoval with no repercussions. They do not have a child together, and she isn't forced to play nice with him or have to co-parent with him. She can harbor as much resentment towards him as she wants, but her hate and anger towards Sandoval is not even eating her alive at all, as Lala claims. Ariana put up healthy boundaries, and she was laying it all out there. Basically, if you fuck with Sandoval, you won't fuck with me, and do what you please with that information. And also, Ariana's handled this with way more grace than Lala can even fathom. Ariana's not vindictive, she's not spewing hate, she's not on a revenge tour, and she's not giving her friends ultimatums if they befriend Sandoval. She's letting everyone figure out what's right for them, and what's right for Ariana is to not allow Sandoval to have access to her life, which is completely understandable. Ariana will then accommodate her life and boundaries in a response to how her friends decide to move forward with him, with no animosity either. My hot take of this whole episode and situation is that Katie is the embodiment of what Sheena is trying to convey. After everything Katie's went through, being degraded by her husband for years, being the villain in the Tom-Katie throuple, having Sheena orchestrate Schwartz and Raquel getting together last year, and yet Katie has not complained why it can't be all about her. Katie's not receiving any apologies for those that wronged her so badly, and she's always been portrayed in a bad light because of the people she was surrounded by. Schwartz, Sandoval, Sheena, Raquel. Like, I have not always been the biggest Katie fan, but the way that Katie has grown and moved on from horrible situations, and I really think that all these years we thought Katie was such a bad villain, but now we're seeing that people that used to be likable or had this facade of likability were making her seem that way. And Katie has grown so much, and I feel I've never been the biggest fan of Katie, but this past year, last year and this year, I'm loving Katie. I think she's a voice of reason, and I think she's actually a loyal friend, and she has her own boundaries, and she speaks what's on her mind, which I think is perfectly fine. So, Sheena, you want an example of a person who it can never actually be about? It's Katie.
Why can I never have one moment where it can be about me?
Sheena, be honest, do you fast forward through other people's scenes?
Yes, I do. It's not about me, but it kind of is about me. This trip is all about me. I don't think it's too much to ask to spend the next 3 days making it about me. It's supposed to be the happiest summer of my life. This is supposed to be the happiest summer of my life. The most important day of my entire life. The week of my wedding. The week of my wedding. I'm getting married next week. The happiest woman alive. I should have woken up this morning like so happy. I always put everyone else first. I can't. I have a happy moment because someone else got engaged. I was hurt too. This guy makes me fall for him, and then I find out he has a wife and kids. This hasn't been easy for me, especially. Why is this like harder than my divorce? I have a husband. None of my other friends have a husband. We can't get married until July. We got engaged a few days ago. I can't have anything going on in my own life because this summer's all about Katie. Katie's wedding. Katie's bridal shower. Katie's bachelor party. Katie, 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 Katie. But I'm not allowed to feel anything because it's not about me, because it's only about her. I'm not wearing my ring this weekend because I do not want anyone to think I'm trying to make this weekend about us. What the are you talking about? Kristen always finds an event of mine to make it about herself. Everyone trying to make it like it's a jealousy thing because it's not. Even her getting Dancing with the Stars, she knew how bad I wanted that. It's not a jealousy thing. There's no jealousy. I can be happy for her and sad for me at the same time. I'm really trying. I put so much effort into my friendships to the point where it's like embarrassing. He's my best friend. The best friend. He is one of my literal closest best friends. We are really good friends. Now Max and I are really good friends. These are two of my best friends. Like, it's so hard for me to be in the middle of this. It's hard to always be in the middle of like my friends. I don't like fighting with my friends. Best friend. You're right. Like best friend. Best friend. Best friend. Best friend. Is my best friend. Is my best friend. Best friend. He was genuinely one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. I can't lose another best friend. The best friend. That's not someone I want to be friends with. No one tells me who I can and can't be friends with. How can I be friends with someone I can't trust? You and I aren't real friends. Going with a guy. I would rather be banged by all 5 of you than be in a van with all 4 of them. I'm with the boys this week. It feels great hanging with the guys. I'm a guy's girl, so I'm happy. I'm friends with all the guys. I hate girls trips. Jax and I have been friends for a while. I don't understand why I'm such a good friend to people who don't give me the same in return. A lot of people may call me a friend collector, but I always have room for one more friend. Any excuse to be the center of attention. I think this song is going to be huge. I'm debuting my new song. Turn it up. I just wanted you to know that you are.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Why are we not singing Good as Gold on repeat? Want to see some footage of my music video?
Not really.
Rude. Trust me, I do not like being injured at all. I just got my teeth fixed today. They knocked me over. It was so hard. You weren't dying. You were in the dentist's office. I sprained it. My contact scratched my eye and it was bothering me, so I wanted to make sure I didn't have an infection. I can't cry because these eyelashes are mean. The doctor said he doesn't want me doing anything active like twerking or clubbing. If you want to talk to me, it'll just be me and you. because it's not about me, but it kind of is about me. I definitely am the happiest I've ever been. It's all happening. It's all happening for me. The best place we've ever been in. I'm the happiest I've literally ever been with him. Did Sheena have a stroke? I've wanted to name a daughter Summer since I was 16 years old. Rob and I have named our first daughter Madison Marie Parks Valletta. Sheena Marie was a cool name, but Sheena Shea is so much cooler. Rob, 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 Rob. Rob, 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 Rob. I just want to eat some of my enchiladas. Enchiladas. I brought his 5 enchiladas. You know what that magic word is? Tequila. Enchiladas. I'm gonna grab some ingredients for my famous enchiladas.
Sheena was cooking and I was fishing.
And I will. Thanks. Same bitch you always been.
So those are basically the heavy things from the episode I wanted to divulge my thoughts on, but there's a few other tidbits from the episode that I just want to quickly mention. So I think Allie is an MVP, dude. When they were out at the bar, James was DJing at Sir and Allie was there, and Schwartz and Joe meet up, and then Sandoval happens to be there, so he comes and sits with them, and Sandoval gives James a pair of like sunglasses and he gifts them to him, saying, but Allie completely sees right through this, and she's like, this is just Sandoval's sad attempt to try and buy James back with a pathetic apology and a material object. And the thing I like about Allie is that she's like very nice and cordial, but she also sees things for how they are. She sees Sandoval for who he really is, which is a giant loser. And she's right. James will just end up being disappointed when Sandoval inevitably lets him down if they form a friendship again. I mean, we all see it coming from a mile away. So that was just a little tidbit. I love Allie. I think she's a great addition, and she's very insightful, and she's also like a peacemaker, because when Lala and Katie were getting extremely heated, Allie said, well, that's the point of this birth charts. Like, everyone just needs to understand, like, you know, why they are the way that they are and just get along. So I thought that was great of Allie. I think she's a great addition, and I like watching her on the show. Okay, so another kind of big part of the episode is we actually get to see Joe for more than just a split second, and it's too much. It's too much. She is trying like way too hard to be like quirky and weird. And newsflash, Joe, I'm sorry, but Schwartz will never seriously consider you as a girlfriend potential. And it was kind of sad to watch, because during the episode, she was talking to Schwartz like, oh, you said you needed, 2 to 3 years after your divorce to like actually be ready for a relationship. Yeah, Joe, you're not the one. You're not the one. He has never publicly acknowledged you as his girlfriend. It was pulling teeth to get him to even admit that you were his friend with benefits for a short period of time. But it's very obvious that you have a thing for Schwartz, and you guys are just, maybe you would be good together because you're both so very weird. Not saying weirdness is a bad thing, but Joe, there's just something that irks me about her that's just like too cringe. Like, you can be weird and be cool and funny, but she's cringy. Her weirdness is cringy. And I've also been hearing a lot that Joe is kind of like the equivalent of a character that younger generations have jokingly made about like millennials. And knowing that makes me ashamed to call myself a millennial. And please know, I will do everything in my power to never be viewed in that light. Even jokingly, it's just such an insult, but I do see how people would make that comparison. Joe is kind of like the cartoon version of or what other generations make millennials out to be. And my God, we are not that.
Joe is a creep.
No, she's not. Don't
No one
disparage
likes
her.
Joe.
I get like BFF vibes. Yeah.
Halo? Salut?
I'm not a tall girl.
Eu un haiduc și te rog, iubirea mea, primește fericirea. Alo, alo, sunt
Joe's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think she's a great cup of tea.
So also in this episode, Tom Schwartz, Tom Sandoval, James, and Brock all had a nice dinner together as the girls were doing their birth charts, but they wanted to make it like a Rack Pat theme, like Frank Sinatra type thing. So they all kind of like dressed to the nines and, very suave. And Brock showed up. He said he couldn't find any of his ties for their dinner because they were all like dressed up in suits and ties and looking, like suave. But Brock decided he couldn't find one of his ties, so it looks like he decided to wear one of Sheena's ruffled blouses. It wasn't actually Sheena's, but that's what came to my mind when I saw him say that he couldn't find any ties, because it was like open chest, like V-cut deep with like ruffles. And I was like, oh boy. I mean, everyone has their own style, but some of his choices are just, I don't know, funny to me. A theme I've noticed throughout all of Vanderpump this season is usually Lisa has been like the voice of reasons in season past, kind of telling people, what they need to hear as opposed to what they want to hear. And she's always been kind of like, respectable in that way. This season, Lisa gives horrible advice and everyone wants to talk to her at some point or another. And every conversation with Lisa, I'm just like, what are you doing? Why? I mean, first she manipulates Sheena and Lala to Tom's suicide storyline. Tom also, by the way, Tom seems to move on very quickly from that suicidal phase as soon as Sheena says hi to him at the airport. Like, please tell me, if you are suicidal, that having Sheena say hi to you is not the thing that will pull you out of that mindset. Like, give me a break. But anyway, also Lisa in her meeting with Sheena, she's completely validating Sheena's hurt feelings about the Dancing with the Stars situation. And she's also planting seeds in Sheena's head that Ariana's not being a good friend if she doesn't allow Sheena to be friends with both her and Tom. Hello, Lisa Vanderpump. Did we forget about your fallout with Kyle? Did you give her a second chance? Did you cut off your mutual friends? Did you have people telling you that you should just kind of let it go and no one should tell you that you shouldn't be friends with Kyle and to try and force Kyle down your throat? No. So why are you doing it to them? Okay, that just really bothered me. Like, are you still besties with Kyle's besties? No. You cut them off, you put up boundaries, and now all of a sudden Ariana is not right for doing that for herself? Oh, so it just applies to you. Okay, got it. Just the whole season that Lisa Vanderpump had babied the fuck out of Tom and won't tell him straight up what he really is. She always dances around it, says it in a nonchalant way, or makes suggestions about what he should do as a decent person. She doesn't tell him he's a liar, he's a manipulator, a con artist, a narcissist. Like, she doesn't tell him any of that. And it's just so pathetic that that she is also way behind this redemption arc for Sandoval. And that's why she's pushing it down everyone's throats. Stop. We're choking. We're gagging. We don't want any more Sandoval. We are done. Ew. No. So anyway, I know this is super long-winded for just a simple recap about Vanderpump Rules, but I wanted to end it on the top 5 most delusional events from this and last week. So starting off strong, we got Sheena. Sheena thinking Sandoval's tears were genuine only for the fact that he was crying when it came to talking about their friendship. Had Sandoval cried while this conversation was happening with James or Lala, I guarantee Sheena would not think his tears were genuine in that situation. But it's all about Sheena, even though it can never be about Sheena. And here we go with another, number 2. Sheena actually saying at the girls' dinner she thinks Sandoval is more sad by his fractured relationship with her than his breakup from Ariana. Like, what? Not only that, but to piggyback off of this specific delusion, Sheena then doubles down on her perspective and she wants to validate that people can change, and she uses Jax as her example. The delusion is delusioning. Not to mention 2 seconds later, Sheena backs the fact that she's heard all these rumors that Jack's running around town on Brittany. So, you really want Jax to be your role model, Sheena, for friendship? Okay. Anyway, number 3. So obviously we all know Pump had closed down, and it seems that Tom Tom, the restaurant that Lisa, had opened with Schwartz and Sandoval having a minute piece of ownership in it, like less than 5%. She was talking to Sandoval this episode about bringing a chef in and kind of making it more of like a dining experience rather than just kind of like a bar and hangout. And so while Sandoval was talking, he then said in his confessional, confessional, that Sandoval had the audacity to feel that he should have been entitled to Lisa running by him Lisa's plans with Tom Tom in regards to adding more of a dining experience. Tom, are you kidding me? He really is the star in his eyes. And Lisa even confirmed, she goes, I would not run anything by a partner that has less than a 5% ownership or co-ownership. Like, that's not even a blip on my radar. So then also we have this episode. So while Sandoval and Lisa were meeting, Lisa was, trying to gauge where Sandoval was at with the whole Raquel of it all. And this is when Raquel was just getting out of the mental facility and the whole issue with Graham, the dog, and everything. So it's understandable that Lisa did have a conversation with Raquel. So she was talking to Tom about this. And so they cut to Tom's confessional, and Sandoval is admitting that he tried to have Raquel leave the treatment center early because, in his words, they were telling Raquel stuff about him and referencing that Tom Sandoval was bad for her. And he was in utter disbelief that they would come to the conclusion that Sandoval was not good for her, and that he thinks that they somehow trying to like brainwash Raquel into thinking that. And I'm going to add a little video here of him acting like he is the victim again in this situation.
Stated that when people get done with these programs, they will stay there. I told her, I was like, this is something you're gonna have to face eventually, and the longer you stay in there, the harder it's gonna be. And she got mad at me, of course, because it became this thing where if I didn't 100% agree with everything they said to her, I was, bad for her or something.
So also during the sit down, Lisa does tell Tom, because Lisa encourages Tom, like, maybe you should talk to Raquel, like, just see what she says. And Tom's like, she blocked me. I can't even talk to her, dude. So Lisa was telling Tom that she actually had a lengthy conversation with Raquel. And Lisa said that Raquel basically said that Tom is not good for her. She feels like she was manipulated by Tom, and she doesn't really want anything to do with him. Lisa also referenced that Raquel said that she just was not comfortable lying to people for so long and just being in that situation. And Raquel referenced Sandoval saying to her that lying is life, or a part of life is lying, or something like that. And his response made me crack up so hard. So his response to that was, of course, denial, but the way he dragged it out, and if I can, I'll play the clip after this, but it was like an automatic response. He was trying to say, I did not say that, but he took so long to get that sentence out. He goes, I did not say that. Like, he drug out his defensive retort for so long to either like try to come up with an excuse as to why he would say that, or to justify why he would say that, or he was thinking so hard as to how he could spin it. It was just so funny seeing this in real time, because you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what you're doing. But the way he drug it out for so long, I thought it was just so funny.
She said to me she wasn't that comfortable lying to everybody. He said that life is lying.
I did not say that.
That's what she told me.
So, I mean, delusion is running rampant in this Vanderpump universe, and that was just my top 5. I'm sure there are way more that I didn't touch on, but this is already getting super duper lengthy, so I am just going to cut it there with Vanderpump. I mean, still entertaining, and there's a lot of talk about next year. Obviously, if this is the end of Vanderpump, they are, there's whispers about Lala, Sheena, and then the Toms possibly being on season 2 of The Valley, if The Valley does get picked up for another season. Obviously, it starts next week. We'll see what it's all about. I think it's going to be pretty juicy and entertaining. I mean, you have Kristen Doute and Jax. They, as terrible as they've been in the past, or where they are now, they are good TV, and I'm kind of excited. But yeah, the word on the street is that there's rumblings that Lala and Sheena. I mean, Sheena just bought a house in the Valley, and don't tell me that wasn't for a possibility of being on another reality show if Vanderpump Rules does meet its end. So that'll be interesting to see if it plays out. I will touch on the whole Jackson Brittany of it all, probably at the end of this podcast, because I do want to get to Summer House and just like briefly, probably not briefly, but I do want to talk about summer house and stuff like that. So if I have any time left, I will come back to the Jackson Brittany of it. Otherwise, Hannah and I will just discuss it when we talk next. So, okay. Whew. Feels so much better. I got that all out. Summer house. My God. Not much better in terms of the frustration you feel while watching this, because we are dealing with the female version of a narcissist that takes absolutely no accountability, acts like she's the victim in every situation and how things are done to her and stuff like that. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's very obvious that I'm referring to Lindsay Hubbard. So I will be talking about last week's summer house and then this week's summer house. So I'm not going to get too much into last week's just because I think everyone kind of knows the gist of it. Really, it was last week's episode started with like kind of the aftermath of the first night that Lindsay and Carl were caught fighting, and Lindsay accused Carl of not being sober, accused him what's he on. They kind of had a big blowout. The whole house kind of knew about it, was involved. Lindsay was trying to spin the narrative. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, the episode last week starts out with Kyle kind of talking to Carl, being like, you know, what's going on? Like, has she been like this? Like, is this how you guys have been like handling things lately? Like, what's going on? And I do feel bad for Carl. I mean, but something that Kyle said to Carl during this conversation was Kyle absolutely hit the nail on the head about Lindsay. Carl is just trying to accommodate and solve the problem, but Kyle quickly pointed out that Lindsay is the problem. Like, and Carl is bending over backwards trying to, you know, be the peacemaker, not let it get out of control and trying to stay calm, but you cannot reason with an irrational person. And I think even if Lindsay's not drinking, she can be very irrational and just kind of a bitch and spiteful and just say things, but when she's drinking, it's a million times worse. And it's just, the more she talks about Carl, you know, she spent a whole lot of this episode basically in her confessional ragging on Carl for, you know, his lack of career motivation. And let me remind you, last summer, Lindsay was the one that had, I think, a big part in Carl quitting Loverboy. Loverboy is the drink company that Kyle and I guess Amanda started. It's like a seltzer. They, you know, a bunch of flavors. It's infused drink, I believe, with vodka and stuff like that. But Carl was working for Loverboy. Yes, they had their own issues. Carl was still struggling with drugs and alcohol at that time. But once Carl and Lindsay got together, I think Lindsay played a big part in convincing Carl that, you know, this isn't good for you. Like, you're not being appreciated. You're not getting paid enough. So eventually Carl did end up leaving the Loverboy company. So this past year, I think Carl's just kind of been trying to figure out like where he's going to go next. He's had like a history with sales and stuff, but I think he's just kind of trying to figure out his place in life. And it was just really disheartening because, I mean, we've all been there. I would think most of us, like, we from time to time struggle about deciding what we want to do or something that fits our lifestyle, or you know, deciding on a career and picking something to do for your daily job in and out, it can be really stressful. And sometimes you do want to take your time with that kind of stuff. But I thought it was just really unfair that, you know, Lindsay was basically ragging on Carl, saying that he needs to figure his stuff out and grow up. Like, Lindsay, being a functional adult is more than just figuring out your career path. It's the type of person you are, your personal growth that you can have. And I think on a personal level, Carl's been on a pretty good personal growth path. I mean, he's made a lot of changes. I mean, in watching him on TV for years, like, you can clearly see, like, dealing with Lindsay in its own right is probably very difficult, but dealing with Lindsay when Carl's sober and she's drunk, like, he just has a very calm demeanor. He seems like he just wants things to be okay, and he's willing to make sacrifices and kind of puts Lindsay first. And that, like, really bothers me that she thinks that, you know, to be a grown-up, you have to have, you know, a job and career and stuff like that. Carl's been on a good path, I think, which is way more than anyone can say for Lindsay. I mean, being a grown-up means taking care of your mental health, being emotionally in tune, and being good with your relationships. So one could even say that Lindsay is still a child in all those regards. I mean, yeah, she's got a job, but that's pretty much all she has going for her in my eyes. So anyway, later they met up, the whole house went to the beach just for a beach day to kind of like relax and stuff. And it just blew my mind that after making those accusations to Carl and then peddling that narrative with the other people in the house, like saying it on camera, Like, she just didn't even try to apologize to him at the beach. Like, Carl kind of let her cool down, like, gave her space. And then he's the one that initiated talking with her. So they went over, and had a side conversation. And Carl was just trying to be very, like, I don't know, just very calm and understanding and trying to reason with Lindsay. And she was still being such a bitch. Like, she took absolutely no accountability. And Carl let her off the hook so easy. He's like, let's just, forget about this. Like, it was, shitty to have my sobriety questioned, but, like, I'm willing to just kind of like move past this and move on. And Lindsay's like, I think that's fair. Yeah, you would think that's fair. You would. When the morning after, Lindsay was talking to Danielle about how, Carl was berating her. He was yelling at her. He was, making it known that Lindsay couldn't have an opinion, which is all the opposite of what was actually happening. But I'm so confused about this situation because Lindsay was confiding in Danielle. And for those that don't know, Danielle was very good friends with Carl and Lindsay for many, many years. And last year, Danielle kind of thought they were moving too fast and voiced her concerns. And Lindsay basically cut her off. They weren't like friends anymore. So even at the beach, Lindsay and Danielle. So first in the morning, Lindsay was complaining to Danielle about Carl. And then later at the beach, they had another heart-to-heart. And Lindsay was like, so are you coming to my wedding? And Danielle's like, look, I didn't know if you wanted me there. Like, I will 100% love to be there. But she's like, I didn't want to respond until I kind of talked to you and see where your feelings were at. And Lindsay was like, oh, absolutely. Like, you have to be there. Like, being such a fake bitch. And so later on, half of the house went out for the evening and the other half stayed. And some of the people that stayed were Lindsay and Paige and Gabby. And so they were chatting in the kitchen. And Gabby's like, are you guys, good? And as you know, Paige and Lindsay have never really liked each other, but Paige definitely stands up for herself and calls Lindsay out on her bullshit. Obviously, Lindsay doesn't like that. But at the reunion after last summer, Paige ate Lindsay up. And so obviously Lindsay has, feelings about that. So anyway, Gabby was like, are you guys cool or whatever? And then Paige was like, I don't hate her, but I also like know that Lindsay's the one that kind of leaked the story that Craig, who's Paige's boyfriend, was kicked out of Kyle and Amanda's wedding. And if you saw the reunion last year, Carl and Lindsay denied. Like, we weren't the ones that leaked the story. It wasn't us. And so Paige was just like, yeah, like, I still think it's you. It's no big deal. But like, I see you. And Lindsay says, it wasn't me. It was Danielle that leaked the story. Immediately threw Danielle under the bus. What the fuck? Like, she is so self-destructive and she's just, I can't stand Lindsay. She's honestly like the female version of Sandoval. Like, I can't. But it's just so ironic that they're, mending their friendship and Danielle's being so nice to her and giving her space and, allowing Lindsay to immediately go back into complaining about the problems in her life and her relationship, which Danielle has always been such a fucking ride or die for Lindsay. It drives me crazy. But now it just makes me sad for Danielle that she's getting played so fucking hard after, Danielle's never really been my favorite, but she is a ride or die friend. Like, she really is. And Lindsay is lucky to have her because Danielle actually tells her when she's being wrong, but she also does it in a way that, like, Lindsay, she'll just never get. But Danielle is a good friend, as annoying as she can be. Okay. The end of the episode was basically a few of the cast, like, during their regular week as they're back in New York City. So West and Sierra went on a date, which I love. He was really nervous. He was sweating a lot, but they seem to have good chemistry. They did end up kissing, but you'll see in this week's episode that Sierra gets a little, like, annoyed that West is kind of letting people know that they had a little makeout, and Sierra likes to keep everything very private. So we'll see what plays out with that. But anyway, the rest of the end of the episode was Lindsay and Carl meeting up. And I think they met up at a sober bar. And so Carl was just kind of, wanting to talk about his career options. And, obviously he's really trying to lean into this, like, sobriety. He wants a job that makes sense for that. And so he's like, I had a great idea. Like, what if I open like a sports bar, but like a sober sports bar? And instead of being like a supportive partner and just kind of like even entertaining it for a second, Lindsay immediately shuts him down, being like, no, like, I'm going to pass on that. Like, that's not a good idea. And in retrospect, like, I understand where she's kind of coming from, because it's like, if you are struggling for money right now, you haven't had a job in a while, like, opening a bar with such a specific niche. I mean, opening a bar alone probably takes a ton of money, a ton of time. Like, I get it in that aspect, but Lindsay could have been way more like supportive, being like, that's a great idea. Like, let's kind of go off of that. Like, let's come up with things together that we can do. in kind of that wheelhouse, but instead she just kind of like shut it down. And I'm sure there was more to that conversation, but it just makes you feel sad for Carl, dude. Like, Lindsay's the one that encouraged him to quit his job, and now she's ragging on him because he hasn't found something else that he's like super passionate about. And he comes to her with his passionate ideas, and she just shoots him down without even a thought, or not even like a constructive, reaction. It's just like really disheartening to see. So anyway, fast forward to this past week. This is, I believe, the third weekend in the house. Paige is not there this weekend. West and Sierra went on a date during the week, and lo and behold, Carl and Lindsay get into another fight. But you'll feel like you have deja vu because it is the same pretense. So Lindsay and Carl get to the house first, and you can already tell Lindsay is just annoyed with Carl. She kind of doesn't want to be around him, doesn't want to hear him talk, like wants to be around other people, but she just makes like such insensitive comments to him. It's just really gross. So anyway, they show Lindsay having several drinks throughout the day, and they all go out to dinner. Once everyone arrives at the house, they all go out to dinner, and you see Lindsay just knocking him back. She even tries to make like a toast at dinner, but like you can tell that she's already drunk. She's kind of slurring her words and, making rude comments to Carl, and it's just very, very evident that this is not going to be good. And when she's already in a bad headspace, I mean, Lindsay alone is already not that great of a person, but when she drinks and when she's already in a bad headspace, like, watch the fuck out. So I guess after dinner, Carl decides that he just wants to go back to the house, and I don't know why Lindsay just couldn't have gone out with a group, but Lindsay goes home with him. And of course, we get our second fight for the second weekend in a row in a lift that we don't have cameras to, but I think it's pretty clear that we are able to kind of believe more of Carl's side of the story because he is sober. He hasn't drank. Lindsay is clearly wasted. And Lindsay, wasted again, accuses Carl of being on drugs. Like, I'm stunned. I'm stunned. What is wrong with this person? It's obvious, and throughout the episode, Lindsay basically verifies that she does this out of spite, and it's so disgustingly malicious. I mean, even once they get back to the house, she's yelling at him as he's in bed, like trying to forget about his life probably, and she has the audacity to compare him to Sandoval. Like, Lindsay, if anyone is like Sandoval, it is you. It is you. You. So then, of course, Lindsay goes on her, victim raid. She tries to flip the narrative to anyone that's around, and it's unfortunately Amanda at this time. And she's basically painting a picture and making it seem like Carl, like listing out things that Carl is quote unquote doing to her. But in actuality, it's all things that Lindsay's doing to him. I mean, she's trying to portray Carl as like gaslighting her. She's saying Carl's switching the narrative. And then Lindsay even said, which I thought was the funniest thing, she admitted that Carl accused her of drinking. Like, not of drinking too much, but accused her of drinking. Sweetheart, you were wasted. And I don't think he was saying it in a demeaning way. He was just saying, I think he was just trying to like justify, like being like, look, you're saying that you're accusing me of being on something when you are clearly wasted and have been drinking all day, meaning you're not thinking clearly. He's not trying to throw it in your face, Lindsay. He's not making you feel bad. Like, clearly you've had no problems knocking him back in front of him, with him, whatever. Like, you've had no issues and no consideration for Carl. And he's just going to reference that you drink and you are going to flip your shit on him. But it's just funny how she worded it, because she just said he accused her of drinking. I mean, you were drinking. Like, that's, oh boy. So anyway, Lindsay tells Amanda, she's like, if you're going to accuse me of drinking, well, I'm going to accuse you of being on drugs. Boom, right there. Malicious, spiteful, vindictive attempt to just be a ruthless person. And I do think Lindsay has a problem. I feel like she probably has trauma in her past and hurt people, but this is your person. This is the person that like gives you more grace than anybody, and you are destroying him, your relationship, your trust, your communication. Like, you're doing that all on your own, Lindsay. And then you want to talk about being blindsided. I cannot believe that. I mean, to accuse a sober person or someone dealing or struggling with sobriety is shameful and disgusting in its own right. But when that person has had their sibling die from those very substances and continue repeatedly using that as a form of revenge or anger, I honestly have no words. Like, Lindsay thinks it's unfair that she's the only person who has seen Carl battle his demons, or she takes pride in that. I don't know. Lindsay, you are his demon, girl. Carl's only real demon is Lindsay. Yeah, like I said, I think Lindsay's version of being blindsided is someone having her tell her the reality of a situation, which is clearly opposed to the delusional reality she consistently lives in, where she believes she's always right and does nothing wrong and can't take any bit of accountability. It just seems so foreign to her that she would actually be not the victim. She considers it as being blindsided.
Am I the problem in this relationship? Yes. What?
I mean, like, at what point does one realize if no one agrees with you and you are having issues with everyone and you feel like you have to be vengeful and hateful and spiteful, like, when is it finally going to click? And when are you finally going to realize you're the problem? Still to this day, after these episodes are airing, Lindsay still takes no accountability. She thinks she should have used more delicate wording and continues to peddle the narrative that she's blindsided. Are you kidding me? And the fact that Carl continues to take the high road. Carl was on Watch What Happens Live after this most recent episode, and he was so graceful too. Like, he has not once said anything bad about Lindsay. He takes 50% of the blame for the demise of their relationship, even though we all know it's way more on Lindsay than it is on Carl. He's always tried to make excuses for her, defend her, takes his own stuff and says, he's got problems too. And, but Carl's he's become a very stand-up guy, and Lindsay does not deserve him. And he even on Watch What Happens Live mentioned the breakup conversation. He goes, because some people were saying, it is unfair that you did this on camera. And Carl said, look, the breakup conversation that happened, he goes, it wasn't meant to be the end of our engagement. He said, I simply just wanted to, have a heart to heart with Lindsay and kind of get on the same page and figure out where we can go from here. But clearly, Lindsay, in her true form, just shut down, went into defense mode, acted like the victim. I mean, we've seen this time and time and time again. So I truly, and I thought this from the beginning, I don't think that was meant to be what it ended up being. I think he really just wanted kind of like a come to Jesus moment, like, hey, we're getting married in a few months. Like, we need to fix this issue because I've dealt the whole summer with you accusing me of something that is not okay and shouldn't be something my partner continuously accuses me of. They also talked about the ring. Lindsay was actually on Watch What Happens Live last week, and she was making it seem like Carl's a bad guy because he asked for the ring back. And she did say that it was New York law that if a ring is given during an engagement and no wedding occurs, then the law states the ring needs to be returned to the guy. So Carl did reach out via email to Lindsay asking for the ring back, which, to say if there wasn't a law, who's to say? I mean, maybe Kyle would have asked for it, maybe he wouldn't have. But the fact that Carl immediately moved out of their super expensive apartment in New York City and has continued to pay his half of the lease, Lindsay, you should shut your fucking mouth, because he probably used that ring to pay for at least 1 or 2 months rent on that place that he has graciously offered to you to stay there while he pays for two different rents by being in another place. I mean, Sandoval, hello, you should take hints. Carl moved out, even though Lindsay was the person that caused the demise of their engagement. So take note, Sandoval. Rest of the episode, really, I am liking Jesse more and more. I admit, when I first saw him, I just wanted to put him in the fuckboy category and not really become invested in him. But he is growing on me, and I really like how the morning after the second fight happened between Carl and Lindsay, that he came right up to Carl the next morning and was basically like, are you okay? Like, why are you guys fighting? Like, is she always like this? Like, basically, do you want your whole life to be like this? And for someone that just met him a couple weeks ago saying this to you, like, everyone can see it. And I think Carl's just trapped because he wants to believe in Lindsay and he wants to believe in the future of their relationship, but you can't reason with irrationality and craziness. Like, you really can't. But I am liking Jesse more and more. He is growing on me. I think they're making his little crush on Paige a little bit more than what it needs to be. But I'm interested to see, because Craig is supposed to come to the summer house next week with Paige. So I'm excited not only to see Craig, but see how that kind of like plays out. But I don't think it'll be a big deal. I think Jesse's just a flirt, and I think I'm liking him more, definitely. Also, I don't really mind Danielle so far this season. And is it because she's not really featured much? Maybe. But I do think her just being her lighthearted self and not having any like boy drama like makes her so much more likable. And the fact that she's like keeping her space from Carl and Lindsay, I think that's wise, and I think that needs to happen, because as much as Danielle just wants to fix whatever issue, like Lindsay's problems can't be fixed by a best friend. Like, they need to be attended to by a psychotherapist, I think. But that's just me. But seriously, watching her former friends like go things like this, like she thinks she can help Lindsay like see reality better and be honest with her. But like I said, Lindsay will never see reality. She will always be the victim in her mind and think she does no wrongs. Also, this week, Kyle and Amanda seem to be a little bit closer. They've had like less tension and more communication. And I don't know if that's just like the ups and downs of, being in a long-term relationship and a marriage and stuff like that. But honestly, like analyzing and talking about other couples' issues, especially issues that are like way more severe than the ones that you have with your partner, I think really brings people together. And I think they found, kind of something to just like communicate about. And it also kind of makes you like appreciate your relationship, that it's not where that is. But it's also hard because, they are discussing their friends and their whole dynamic. But I do like when Kyle and Amanda are on the same page. I understand her frustration with Kyle, like I voiced, but I think that's just normal ups and downs. So yeah, I think that's going to do it this week. Like I said, I will talk about the Beverly Hills reunions with Hannah next week, and I'm sure we're going to touch on Summer House and Vanderpump as well. But I just thank you for listening, and I can't wait to give you guys another episode. So thanks so much. Bye.